Extra trashy time. What's going on, everybody? Listen, I have one question and one question only. iDom, are you ready to learn Japanese, buddy? Are you ready?
I know a little bit of Japanese. Been there. I know. I got the arigatos. I got the zaimasu. I had to say thank you to getting some food in Japan. But I am ready because I am super excited to watch Street Fighter League Japan now.
Are you actually going to be watching Street Fighter League Japan? Because a lot of people are.
There's so many people in Japan are. I remember Dogura got fined for saying, I was tired of watching Street Fighter League Japan because all I see is Bison and Akuma. But, hopefully Street Fighter League Japan is going to be different this year. But, I know a lot of people in Japan have been just watching Street Fighter League in general because their numbers just keep going up.
Yeah, so we're bringing this up because we have been seeing the evolution of the Street Fighter 6 influence in the Japanese community, and by evolution I mean the continuous growth. Street Fighter League Japan just recently had its debut for this season, and it was getting numbers of over 150k combined viewers on all the different platforms, which includes YouTube, Twitch, and then of course all the different watch parties. Yes, the watch parties where we were all memeing on them because Capcom put out those official recommendations where the only thing you can include in your restream is the little timer of the game. You could have that little square area available from the original broadcast. You couldn't have any audio, nothing else beyond the timer, but that would allow you to synchronize your viewing experience with other people watching the main broadcast. Everyone was memeing on them, but apparently this works. Apparently for Capcom it works, and people were tuning in crazy numbers for that debut. And on top of that, we just started getting in the registrants for the first World Warrior for Japan. And, Japan was always way ahead of the pack in terms of popularity for Street Fighter. And ever since Street Fighter 6, we already saw this explosion in popularity amongst different sub-communities in Japan. And the World Warriors were doing really well, right? They were cracking like 700 entrants per World Warrior event. The very first World Warrior for this season, it's not 700 people. It's not 800 people. There's over 1,600 players registered for the Japan World Warrior #1, which will begin at the time of this recording next weekend, which is absurd. Maybe one of the largest online tournaments ever for the world of Street Fighter. It might be the largest. I don't have the official numbers on that to back that up. Hey, Brian F. in Post here. It's been 24 hours since the podcast was recorded, and it is now September 1st, Monday. And since that time, the registration for the Japan World Warrior #1 event has officially closed, and it has also gained over 800 new entrants, bringing the total up to 2,357 entrants. Fubarduck here points out that this has more entrants than the Street Fighter 4 series ever got at an EVO, and the largest EVO for Street Fighter 4 was the final one 2015 for Ultra Street Fighter 4 with 2,227 entrants. And Inkross here points out that this is officially the largest ever singles bracket in the FGC period. Takes over that title from EVO 2021 Online North America for Guilty Gear Strive, which had 2,262 entrants. So this has nearly 100 more players participating in this event. The two largest brackets were 5v5 team tournaments, the Topanga Charity Cup 13 and 14. So those were 5v5, so you would cut the bracket by 5 divided by that quotient to get the number of raw entrants. But for singles, this tournament has officially made history, being the largest ever for the FGC. Okay, back to the conversation. Just that scale of people entering is ridiculous, but it's not just that. To me, what I'm looking at here is we're in year 3. This is the third season of competitive Street Fighter 6, and at this point in time, the number of entrants has doubled. What is going on in Japan to have this continuous growth this late into the game's lifespan? That's what we're going to dig into a little bit here on this podcast. But did you have any initial reactions, iDom, when you saw that? Because I was just like, wait a minute. How?
I'm not really too surprised. The EVO Japan numbers keep going up. I know a lot of people are saying this year it only went up because EVO Japan was a CPT, but they love the game over there. When I was in Japan for Capcom Cup, I'm walking through the subways, the train stations, and I see Street Fighter 6 posters, and I see like, hey, that's Ryu. That's Ryu from the streets on like random subway. Like when I walk around in New York and there's I go into the subway, I'll see like random ad for like a movie, you know, a John Wick movie. Oh, go watch John Wick. It's different over there because I'm seeing Ryu and Chun-Li and other characters. Even during Capcom Cup, I think there was even Fatal Fury posters as well. But I guess their gaming over there is so much more different than it is over here.
Yeah. I mean, in general, what you bring up is true. Like, I think even before Street Fighter 6, the cultural influence of gaming and anime and entertainment products is like very different. Like, you know, it's just normal to see merchandise and references to long and storied IPs like Street Fighter in Japan. You do see the merch randomly where you go, right? And I think that was also true pre Street Fighter 6. Like Ryu, you know, Chun-Li, whatever, the World Warriors, they were just a part of the zeitgeist of culture there in Japan, and that continued to grow into Street Fighter 6. I mean, we used to see this in Street Fighter 5 all the time. The most random collaborations for merchandise would happen even in late Street Fighter 5 when, you know, the game wasn't really doing as hot, especially over in the States. And I felt like the game was like clawing its way back to relevancy after COVID, because, you know, the bubble of esports had popped, COVID slowed things down, and they were slowly like ramping the game up to be a good product, which I think they did achieve. Like, I personally feel like Street Fighter 5 was really good starting in like 2020, 2021. I really enjoyed those later seasons. And so they were kind of getting back their street cred in the US in the later seasons of Street Fighter 5. But then you would see in Street Fighter in Japan, you would see like random watch collabs, random drink collabs. They just license that IP out to anybody in Japan. So there's always this like constant stream of strange collaborations and merch coming in the Japanese audience and seeing. So that's normal to see. But then come Street Fighter 6, it like started to translate into people actually entering the tournaments and becoming part of the scene. And you brought up a good point about the tournaments, right? So we have some stats about the largest tournaments for Street Fighter 6. Of course, number one is Evo Vegas 2023. Over 7,000 people entered that tournament, and that makes sense. The most common trajectory for a lot of competitive games in the FGC is the first year is the biggest, right? It's the most hype, the most excitement. A lot of people register before the game is even out, right? Yeah. Like I registered for Fatal Fury at Evo this year. I didn't make it to my pools. I had some scheduling conflicts or whatever, but you get what I'm saying, right?
So no, I see what you mean. I get it.
It happens every turn. Even games like DBFZ, man. I remember the first final round after DBFZ released, I got through my pools and winners playing one match. That pool had at least 30 people in it. None of them showed up. They all got DQ'd because they all registered when they're hype, and it doesn't always translate to people showing up to play. So that's to be expected. But then we see that for this year, Evo 2024, if we follow that trajectory, actually. So Evo 2023, 7,000. Evo 2024 Vegas, 5,279. Evo 2025, 4,233. A steady decline in entrance for Evo Vegas. Obviously, this is paired with like a lot of geopolitical situation, the economics. There's a lot of stuff happening in the world that can influence those numbers as well. But in general, this is a trend you see for every fighting game. Evo Japan, however, Evo Japan 2024, the first Evo Japan for Street Fighter 6, 5,000 entrants, still behind Evo 2024 Vegas. So that year, Evo Vegas still had more entrants. Evo Japan 2025 had 6,661 entrants. It increased by 1,600 players. The numbers went up, and it actually had more entrants by a factor of 2,400 than Evo 2025 Vegas. If this keeps up, I mean, like we're seeing it in the World Warriors, we're seeing it in Evo Japan. Evo is a cultural cornerstone of the FGC for decades. It's been about Evo Vegas, right? They added Evo Japan in 2018, and it was slowly trying to build that prestige, even though you could argue the competition's probably on average much higher in Japan. But the level of international talent traveling there was usually a little bit less. It was more the local talent, which is the majority of the best players on the planet, of course. But man, it's starting to replace Evo Vegas for sure. I mean, the entrants are there, the numbers are going up and up, and you're seeing the organic growth within Japan itself in those numbers as well. So that's kind of crazy to me. Like, I don't know if you expect this to go up another 1,000 next year.
I personally think maybe by the time SF6 keeps growing like this, Evo Japan could possibly hit 10K. I think it might be the first 10K entered Street Fighter tournament. But I'm very curious to see, because not just talking about Evo Japan, I want to see the Evo France numbers, because that is actually coming up fairly soon. So I'm curious to see how other parts of the world are kind of, putting into the, Street Fighter 6 basket. Because from my opinion, or at least just my experience, I don't know how you feel about this. I think Harada was talking about, there's more Tekken players in EU than there is Street Fighter player. But if you go to other countries, I think there's more Street Fighter players in Japan than Tekken players, obviously. So I want to know if it's like a cultural different game, like, oh man, EU doesn't like Street Fighter, but they love Tekken over there for some reason. So
Interesting.
maybe Tekken might have more entrants than Street Fighter at Evo EU. I mean Evo France, not Evo EU. But you know what I mean.
Yeah, I never considered that. Has there been an Evo where Tekken had more entrants than Street Fighter? Was maybe like a Evo Japan for in the late Street Fighter 5 era? Did Tekken 7 crack more entrants?
I want to say, I want to say no. I don't think so. Maybe early on, or maybe one of the later Street Fighter 5 years, but I'm actually unsure. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think for it's so much cultural things, and like I said, Japan's been trying to, I think it's also like a lot of the Japanese pro players have been just trying to get, newer players into the game, which is kind of helping the scene grow. Like, I don't think everything they do over there is necessarily competitive. So whether you're a pro player or like gold, you're still going to be invested in trying to learn and get into the game in general. So I think that's kind of helping a lot. They don't have, super serious tournaments. That's why stuff like Sajam Slam over here is super important, because it's getting people into the game that I don't want to say you don't have to be good, but you don't have to be like, top 0.1% of the player base, trying to, fight for scraps and, get third at Evo because you got beat up by some Chilean kid. Personal experience.
Yeah, no, I actually 100% agree. I think the big analysis here from people looking at the cultural phenomena that Street Fighter 6 has become, because it's broken containment, to be quite clear, just to break it down. This is no longer a niche subculture, even within Japan. And even in Japan, of course, it was always bigger than it was in America, right? Except for in the 90s. Like Street Fighter 2 in the 90s broke containment. It became a cultural phenomena at that time. Everybody knew what Street Fighter was. It was in every laundromat, every pizza parlor, right? The arcade cabs were everywhere. Street Fighter 2 was just a part of these cultural zeitgeist of that era. Street Fighter 6 has become that again in Japan, and it's due to, I believe, two factors: modern controls and VTubers. Right, sort of like what you're saying about the Sajam Slams, right? Because the community in Japan has heavily capitalized on community driven events. So like we have Sajam Slam in the stateside. In Japan, they have several slam style events, right? There's Crazy Raccoon Cup, there's Legendist, there's a Reject Fight Night, which they even did the Sajam Slam versus Reject Fight Night championship in Japan at one point to like have a crossover between the different regions' communities. And these events involve a lot of like really popular streamers and content creators in the Japanese sphere. And from some of the discussions I've had, like I've made YouTube content about this and discussed it on stream, and I get comments actually from Japanese natives who like leave comments in Japanese, and they describe their perspective on this, and they say, yeah, in Japan, like streaming culture is very, very popular in Japan from what these comments and people have informed me of. And it's very common to just watch your favorite VTuber, watch your favorite streamer, and to be that influencer culture of being influenced by your streamer to partake in a certain hobby or game is extremely prevalent, right? And it's leading to a lot of people picking up the game for the first time. So modern controls was lowering that barrier to entry to get people to easily start picking up the game and dabbling in it to some degree. And then there's the partnerships between the popular streamers and pro players. They were able to organize these events to involve these very influential figures in the streaming space. That gets more people invested into the game, and it's working. Like, it's really, really working. And these events, these streamer influencer events, they also crack 150K, almost 200K viewership. They start bringing in more numbers than Evo pools, right? Like maybe Evo Grand Finals is bringing in more numbers, but these streamer influencer events are huge in Japan. It destroys what we're able to accomplish here in America. And I think Sajam Slam is the closest thing we have. And I would argue that Sajam Slam is also very successful, right? I think some people like kind of raise their nose to this whole concept because fighting games are supposed to be cool and niche, but it works.
I think it's just like I don't know. I think in a lot of America, it's like I want to see the best players play, and the fact that this event is so popular and it's not the best of the best playing is. I think that's kind of what's throwing people for a loop. But I don't think either or is bad. Like I think there's a time and place for everything. Like if you want to watch the best of the best, you can watch Evo, you can watch a Capcom Cup. But if for other stuff, it's this event is cool because now people who aren't the best of the best are playing, and they're having fun. They're laughing. I don't think I've ever seen somebody laugh at an Evo Grand Finals. They're stressing the fuck out. Yeah, they're stressing out up there. So you got to show there's fun to this. There's some sort of fun.
And when they do laugh, people get pissed off. Like I've seen so many comments getting mad about Blas laughing when he plays. Yeah. I thought that was so strange. I've had so many comments and I've seen so many Twitter posts about people upset that Blas is laughing at Esports World Cup, right? It's very strange. But you bring up a good point, and I think those comments, if I were to guess, are coming from long-standing members of the FGC. They're already in, like they're like as core as you can get, right? They're in it. They're in the thick of it. They're playing all the time. They're embedded in this scene. They're not on the fringes of casual fans. They're hardcore fans of fighting games. So of course what they care about is the high level play. They are investing themselves in practicing, learning, and becoming high level players, and they want to watch high level player. Right. That makes sense. But that's a percent of the audience of fighting games. And I would probably argue that they're also older. Right? Like there's a whole age gap cultural divide in the internet era. For younger generations, their entertainment comes often through the form of influencers, like it or not. I think people like to turn their nose up to that and to say this is bad and it's stupid and it's silly. But that works. People want to see their favorite influencer play a game and have fun with it, and that influences them to consider trying it out themselves.
I think it's not necessarily an age thing. We have a lot of young players in the FGC. Enzo, Doma, I think he's pretty young. He just won the World Warrior West. Blas, obviously. There's a lot of young people who do want to be the best, but I disagree with the young people are just playing to try to see something funny, like for the memes. I guess I would say like they're just trying to. Well,
I'm not trying to say that that's all that exists. I'm just trying to say that the people who are saying that they don't care about the influencer or care about watching these influencer type of events, I would argue that they're probably a little bit older. On average, that's what I'm saying. I do agree that a lot of people who are younger or serious hardcore, we're seeing them now. But who is the audience for these types of events? Is it the FGC guy who used to play Street Fighter 2 back in the day in the arcades, trying to watch their favorite VTuber participate in a team tournament led by a coach? Not usually. That's my argument. I would argue that generally it tends to a more younger audience, which is a good thing. Is my point here. And I think a lot of the dissenting voices would often come from people who are less removed from influencer culture. And to me, there's an age gap there. People who grew up pre-internet don't understand or don't gravitate towards this influencer online streamer culture, right? I think that's just natural because you didn't grow up with it. Whereas younger people, that's the primary form of entertainment. You don't have late night show hosts. You have your favorite streamer and you want to see what they're playing. So that's my perspective on that. I don't have data to objectively back that up, but I feel like that's kind of common sense.
I guess for me, I will also say one thing. I think that the reason SFL Japan and maybe this stuff is growing bigger over there, and I've advocated for this a lot, and I know people are always saying I'm kind of wrong. I still think to this day, SFL-US should be online and let all the streamers stream their point of view, because I think it'll get more people kind of engaged in just watching the streamer. And then like you can stream hop. Oh, this guy's playing, let me go to his stream. This guy's playing, let me go to their stream. I think stuff like that's kind of better. That's why I think Japan kind of helped, because even when they're playing, Bonchan play his match on stream. Oh, everyone jump to Bonchan stream to go watch Bonchan's point of view or whoever Bonchan's playing. So I think that helps a lot. I don't know why in America or EU. I know EU just had the Street Fighter League Live kind of experiment, which I thought was pretty cool. But I will say one problem with that is what they did it like a whole week straight, or was it 9 days or something? Yeah, it was a marathon. It didn't feel like it felt like there was. I watched like the first 3 days, and then I was like, okay, I gotta watch Street Fighter League again. And then I was just kind of like tuned out until like grand final. But I think if it's like weekly and online, and like maybe don't make the player not have to leave their houses or anything, and don't say they can't go to tournament. But if you could be like every Wednesday at 8 p.m. clock in right now, or be ready to turn your stream on at this time, I think that'll help a lot in America.
Yeah, absolutely. It's called a league. It doesn't make any sense. So first of all, the way that America has done it is they did have this weekly event to tune into, but it's pre-recorded. They under the hood, they did the marathon. So EU did Street Fighter League USA was serialized entertainment over the course of a season, a couple months, where every week they put out an episode of Street Fighter League US. Street Fighter League EU split the difference and said, hey, we're going to just do it all live. This is actually under the hood what Street Fighter League USA is. They do this marathon of filming multiple episodes a day. Sometimes they film 2-3 episodes a day, and they split that up over the course of 3 weeks. EU just did it all at once, and I think that was a little bit better because when it's not live, you just don't care. It immediately, I think this, I've seen so many chat comments where like they're watching and they go, is this live? And someone goes, no. They go, okay, peace. Because that's just how people operate. Like it deflates the stakes of the moment. Like you if you already know it's not live, even if it's the first time it's premiering, a lot of people just go, I'd rather just watch a recap, or I'd rather just get the summary after the point. I don't feel involved in the tension of the moment. And for EU, like you mentioned, it was a marathon. It doesn't feel like a league. A league has a season. You have a season. Imagine if in the NFL, NBA, whatever, they're playing 5 games a day over the course of 1 week, and that's it. It's over. Like, it doesn't make sense. The whole point is that you have the peaks of excitement, like you mentioned, the weekly event where everyone tunes in, and then you have the period of time after to digest, to reflect, to be like, man, how are they going to adapt next week? What is the strategy they're going to do? I want to follow along with the journey of my favorite team and favorite players and see how they progress through the season. There's time to digest these moments and time to follow along with your favorite team and to actually care about their performance. And the marathon is too short. You get overwhelmed, you stop caring. With the USA format, you don't care from the beginning because it's pre-recorded. And even then with Street Fighter League USA, there was so much beef going on and so much like drama associated with it, with all the personalities there, with like Punk and Noah the Prodigy. And they were holding their tweets for months under NDA to start talking. The players would then tweet at each other about their beefs months after they recorded it, like the Noah Crisp beef and all that. There were so many silly moments where finally the episode would air where they had like a little showdown, stare down, or whatever during the episode, and only then were they allowed to publicly talk about it, and they would talk about it months later, and it just felt silly.
I think, I mean, that's kind of just our Street Fighter League, though. I feel like our Street Fighter League kind of leads into the drama a bit more. But like you were saying, I personally think that would be better. But I think the reason they don't do that is because they feel like they'll be conflicted, or somebody would, say something on stream and be like, oh man, this guy sucks because he's carried by Mai or something. And then like that looks kind of ugly. And then they can't really...
They can't edit it.
Yeah, they can't edit it or, take anything out. So I think that's why they prefer not to do it that way. But I personally think, it'll be better for just Street Fighter League in general. And also, I will say, the Twitch collab streams are amazing. I feel like some of my best streams are when me and Kami are just, chilling, talking shit, just, shooting the shit, talking. So I think that kind of stuff is what really gets viewers engaged and, helps grow the scene and just the people, the players in general.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what's missing with our current format in USA entirely, is that sense of collaboration, and like people just don't care about Street Fighter League USA. It's not working, and I think 100% if it was online, it would be better. On top of the brand risk factors of American players going off the rails and them not being able to censor it or not, because you want to have them mic'd up in your broadcast, but then you got to be ready to to mute them, even though they lead into the drama. There's a limit, right? Like, but on top of that, there's logistical factors. America's big. Netcode is great. I think you could do cross country, but also Street Fighter League USA is really Street Fighter League World. They haven't solved that issue.
You gotta get them. Just get them an Airbnb or something. They'll be all right.
They're gonna live here for how many months?
Oh wait, yeah. You're right.
Yeah, it would have to be. It would have to be months, right? Street Fighter League Japan works because they're salaried. They're all living in Japan. This is your job for X number of months to do this.
But you could also think about it like this: if you cut the cost of, they paid for traveling, and they paid for traveling to go to undisclosed location of where Street Fighter League is filmed. They pay for, planes and food and catering and all that stuff. So you're cutting all those costs if you think about it, because the players will be at home. Transportation.
That's true.
So there's still money to be played with.
Yeah, I think it's just a different cultural expectation. There's a bit of old media mentality, I think, surrounding America, and I think Japan has really embraced like the influencer culture and engaged with that. And on top of that, even within Street Fighter League Japan, like bridging the gap between the influencer-led events, which I think have gotten a huge amount of players into the game and have actually gotten them into entering tournaments, which to credit the cultural difference there, Sajam Slam, I think, is the best we have and is very effective and is successful in America for getting people into the game. I wonder how many people who were watching those events ended up entering the tournaments. I still think there's like it hasn't completed the loop of tying people into the competitive scene completely. Whereas I feel like in Japan, we have actual examples of this, because one of the big storylines from the premiere of Street Fighter League Japan is Takagi. I apologize if I'm pronouncing his name wrong. Takagi. He is a popular, originally variety streamer from Japan who got into late game Street Fighter V. It was gifted to him. He was on the tiebreaker match for his team that he ended up winning. So he went from being a variety streamer who picked up Street Fighter V initially just on a whim, and worked his way up, grinded his way up, assisted by coaching. There's collaboration streams from top players in Japan who were coaching him as well. Like, every step of his journey was documented as a streamer, from complete beginner to all the way competing in Street Fighter League Japan. He ended up winning his clutch tiebreaker in that set, because you have to have now the fourth place player go up for the tiebreaker no matter what. So you can't be benched, right? They changed the rules a little bit. So it was his time to shine, from complete beginner a couple years before to all the way in Street Fighter League Japan, which is huge. That's a huge progression in that amount of time. And he won the match. Huge pop-off, emotional pop-off there. Everyone who followed with his journey for these past couple of years was very emotionally involved. Like, it felt like people were along for the journey, documented bit by bit by bit. That completed the loop, right? Like, the influencer turned to professional player winning his open match to clutch the set for his team, right? The loop has been closed. Like, there's no difference. The influencer event became the professional player. Like, so I think there's this gap that has been completely bridged between the influencer event getting players into the competitive scene. It's 1-to-1. Where I still feel like in the West, it's not like that. Like, we had the influencer event with Sajam Slam, and there's also like the AT&T tournament, which I think also helps a bit with that. Like I got to work with like Ludwig and Squeaks a little bit, for example. Tyler One was there, and he started doing events as well. So there's a little bit of that gap being bridged. And Tyler One did that modern tournament, had Punk and Chris G and other people in it, right? So like it's bridging that gap a bit, but I still feel like the loop isn't fully closed, where we have influencers who are 100% like aware of the pro scene and really getting their audience to then pick up the game, but then to also enter the tournaments. That final step hasn't been closed in the West, and I think if we keep investing in the Sajam Slams and those types of events, it's possible we can start growing in that direction too. But only Japan has completed that right now.
I think Tyler One entered his modern only. Well, he was supposed to enter his modern only tournament, but then he like backed out. I think he let Chris G take his spot or something. But the thing that sucked is like, kind of what you're saying, if Tyler 1 entered his modern tournament and then beat someone like a really notable player, that would have been cool. Would that have happened? Probably not. But I think if he beat, somebody really good, that could have been, that's kind of the loop you're kind of looking for. I know in Japan, Shaka, he plays a lot of FPS games, but he's been playing a lot of Street Fighter 6. I know because he plays Manon, and he was kind of like following me around a lot of Evo this year. But yeah, he's like super invested. He like watches all the Manon. He studies a lot of the Manon players. He was telling me like he watches me and Akutagawa a lot. So like that kind of stuff is cool, but like it's kind of just like a big influencer getting invested, whether it's because there's a character that this guy mains and like I want to get invested, or I want to learn more about the character, or maybe you just think the influencer's a cool guy and then you get invested too. So I think they do a lot of good stuff over there. In America, I mean, we have a lot of top players, but we don't have like the influencer. I guess Max would be that kind of thing, but Max barely plays six.
But
right?
but even Max, like all respect to Max, right? Even Max is not in. He's not quite closing that loop with the competitive scene. You know what I mean? And to be fair to him, you can't really do that across multiple pro scene. You know what I mean? You have to eventually cut your focus. And I think in the West, it's always about the next trend, which is what I've read is also very common in Japan. It's still about the next trend, like whatever's the next trending game, whatever. So somehow Street Fighter 6 has broken through to be stable. Like Shaka, huge content creator, him investing solely in Street Fighter 6, that's often usually like a brand risk, because like, you're going to start losing your audience if you're not doing something new or moving on. But it's working. So I don't know if that's a cultural difference where like, even if you're a really famous influencer is niching down into one specific gaming sphere, like the audience is that dedicated that they'll follow and grow with them, or if Street Fighter 6 just has that X factor where more and more people are getting into it, like it's just growing beyond the individual influencers. I'm not sure, but I would argue that in the West, take a big streamer, if they start solely focusing on Street Fighter 6 or one competitive game, they would slowly bleed their audience, because the variety is what gets people going. It's not just the influencer themselves, it's also the social interaction going along with different trends, right? Like you have to hop on the new Mario Kart when it comes out. You got to play the new friend slop game, as they call it. You got to play Peak, right? Yeah. That's the latest one, right? And they're funny games, and I get why it works. It's a vehicle for having the streamers engage and show their comedic chops and personalities through the medium of the game. So like I get why you do that. But if one of them after the Sajam Slam only did Street Fighter forever, would it work? I don't know. So I think we need to keep doing the Sajam Slam type things and keep working on that. And I think we've seen success. Capcom for sure has. Like they've invested in Sajam Slam. They've officially partnered. They're not doing those stickers and in-game promotions for no reason. I think they're seeing objective return on investment for that small collaboration. Like Sajam does all the work and his team. They put a little promotion in game, throw a sticker in there. Their sales numbers go up. There's for sure benefits. Like Capcom understands that this is working as well, and they're trying to make this grow in the West. I just wonder if we can keep working in that direction and make it really pay off, and eventually see our tournament numbers grow, because that's the final loop. And it's crazy that they have 1,600 players in World Warrior on year 3, more than doubling their entrance from the previous World Warrior.
I also guess it's just like, I don't want to say there's not a lot of fighting games, but I guess in Japan, like their other fighting game numbers aren't like the hottest compared to ours, because like I know Strive is way more popular in the West than in Japan. Same thing. I don't know about Tekken, but I would have to guess Tekken's more popular over here, maybe.
Yeah, the Tekken Japan, EVO Japan Tekken numbers are like way lower than EVO USA. It's significantly lower. So I think it's fair to say that Tekken 8 has not been doing that hot in Japan.
Yeah. So maybe it's just like kind of, you got the one game to play. I've always said that's kind of that's one thing with gaming in general. Like you could like Call of Duty and I could like Battlefield, and like we're at odds. But if there's only one game to play and just say, oh, we should all be playing Fortnite, everyone's going to be on the one game. So Street Fighter might be their Fortnite.
That's true. Yeah, there's only so much attention people can give to any game at one time, and so the success of Street Fighter, does that necessitate the abandonment of other games in the genre? Maybe, right? Like, yeah, it's an interesting concept, and like I said, bring up the Maximilian point again. Maximilian plays everything, right? Not even just fighting games anymore. He's a general gamer guy, and so he couldn't, for the way his brand is set up, he could not focus on one game. He could not. Right, it just doesn't work. He's the general fighting game guy, but also kind of the Capcom guy, kind of like the retro guy, kind of like he's a general gaming influencer. And he really blew up when he became a general gaming influencer, discussing all aspects of the gaming industry and upcoming games.
Fun fact, actually, one of the first Max videos I watched was him getting an AC-130 in Modern Warfare 2. So it's actually kind of funny that it's so much different, because I didn't even know Max played fighting games. I saw his Modern Warfare 2 video.
Oh, Max, the Modern Warfare 2 guy? Oh, man, he plays some Marvel? Okay. That's crazy. He wrote the book on Assist Me,
Assist
man.
Me, yeah, no, but I was playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 came out before. Before Marvel.
True. Okay, I'm getting my timelines mixed up. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so were you also like, oh, he knows ball when Assist Me came out?
Yeah, I was like, oh, he plays fighting games too. That's cool. Like, I didn't know that. I thought he was a Call of Duty guy.
Yeah, it really does work that way in the West. I feel like you have to kind of ride the waves of the IPs that are really popular. It's very hard to gain a huge following from one niche, especially in the Street Fighter scene. But we'll see if that changes in time. Here's my take, though, or here's the interesting question I have is, are we going to continue to try to replicate this kind of success in other regions like America for us, or does Japan just slowly consolidate all the focus for Street Fighter 6 esports and content creation? Because another point I didn't bring up, like if you look at the content creators for Street Fighter 6 in the pro scene, you look at a Kawano, Tokido, whatever. Kawano is getting on his stream highlight videos minimum 150,000, but usually $250,000 to $500,000 to $1 million views on every single upload. And they are edited stream highlights, like some subtitles, some Japanese text popping up in the stream, a ranked game, him discussing one little technique, or like, I ran into X player on ranked, and he's getting nearly 1 million views. He's getting more average viewership than Maximilian. Purely Street Fighter 6 stream highlights. If you guys are not familiar with the level of popularity these guys have now, you should check it out. Kazunoko is another one. Haitani, right? They have become influencers themselves. They're making bank on YouTube. And from easy content, just stream, and then some guy edits it and then cuts it down to a stream highlight, and they're making bank. And I'm looking at that like, man, that is not gonna happen for an American audience. It's just not. It's just, and so for me, my gears are turning. It's like, I got to make a video for the Japanese audience. I got to break into, you know what I mean? Like, that's literally where my mind is going. It's like, it's almost like you're spinning your wheels, not trying to partake or capture the Japanese audience. And then even with the competitive scene itself directly, we had the Birds picked up by Team Reject, right? That's the Street Fighter League Japanese esports org. And by the way, their Street Fighter League team is like, it's crazy. Tokido, Lashar, Daigo, Fudo. That is like, you could argue maybe not the most stacked team. I would say it probably still is. But the star power, that's crazy.
That is any NBA fan viewership. That is a 2004 Lakers team. Because that is a whole bunch of old dudes and the one young guy who's just going to try to carry. So that's all that is.
No, Fudo, I mean, if I had to do power rankings, Lashar and Fudo, Tokido, Daigo, right? If I had to do power rankings, all respect to all the legends of that team, but the star power is crazy.
Yeah, the star power is insane.
That is crazy. So the Birds got picked up by that team. I almost suspected at one point, I was like, dude, they might just be on Street Fighter League Japan. Who knows? The Birds next year?
That's what I thought too.
So they're not, now that they announced the teams and everything. So I suspect they're going to be back in EU. But I can see a future where, hey, come to Japan. Like Mena RD practically already has his second citizenship over there in Japan, right? He's over there training all the time and winning all their Evos. Why doesn't he just live there? I almost feel like if you're in this space, you are trolling yourself, not just focusing on Japan in some way. So that's why I opened this like time to learn Japanese item. Hey man, when's it time to start going to Japan to make content to connect with the Japanese audience in some way? You're probably way more famous in Japan than you are in America.
I would say, well, thank you, but I would also say is the one thing that's also cool about their Street Fighter League got bigger. There's more teams than usual.
Yeah.
Like they've added extra teams to kind of let more players in. I'm curious if I think the problem would be just taking from Street Fighter League US and EU, but they could easily take both the best players from America, make an American team in Street Fighter League Japan, and same with EU, take EU's best players and make a Street Fighter League EU team in Japan. Because that's kind of one problem I feel. I don't know if you felt like this when you were watching Street Fighter League EU last year. The team that was going to win was a foregone conclusion.
Yeah,
it was kind of over. Yeah, so I think that's not healthy for a league. But if you can send a team like the Birds, Phenom, and all of them over to like a Street Fighter League Japan, that'll take from the maybe European viewership, but I think more people would be invested to see how a team like that would do against some of Japanese best.
Yeah, that's a big problem right now because Japan is the only region that can really support that scale of a league and divvy up the teams and make it feel competitive, right? Whereas like in Street Fighter League EU, the team that won was Ninjas in Pajamas, and that's Phenom, Veggie, Big Bird, Angry Bird. It's like, brother, like,
yeah, there was no chance.
Zero chance.
Offense to the EU player. No offense to the EU player.
There could have potentially been a chance if with the 5 other teams they combined the absolute best person from each team. But when you start trying to create balanced teams, you're really, unfortunately, like the level of play falls off in most other regions after the first handful of players. And USA, I would argue like maybe like 10. If you have like 10, the top 10 in the USA, you can make a couple good teams from the top 10, right? But then like even in the USA, I feel like it starts falling off pretty at top 15, top 20. Like once you hit the 20, it's like it's starting to have a steep decline. So that's fine within the one individual league for the most part. I think it works. But then when you do the format of the worlds, it's like then you throw the Japanese team versus the USA team. Street Fighter League USA team was pretty stacked with Punk,
the MENA,
CCH. The MENA team was great too as well in 2023.
Really good. Yeah.
There's a couple of superstar teams that emerge, but in general, you're hamstringing the other regions. Whereas Japan is like, hey, any combination of 4 or 5 players we put together is going to be really good because we have that many players. But in the other regions, it's like, yeah, maybe the top 2 are like significantly better than the bottom 2 of the team, even though they're strong. It's like you're purposely not making the superstar team from each region, right? Like just by the nature of the format. So I find that combination at the end of a season a little misrepresentative of each region, rather than just saying here's the best 4 players from USA, the best 4 players from EU, and the best 4 players from Japan. It's like whatever hodgepodge they managed to put together in USA and EU versus no matter what team from Japan goes through, it's a superstar team. You know? So I find that a little difficult to reconcile as well. And but you bring up a good point about having more spots and everything, which allows more people to enter, allows more full-time professional players. USA and EU is a lot smaller, and
I think US added 1 team this year. I think it's 7, which is a weird number, but I think there is 7 teams this year for the US instead of 6.
Interesting. Okay.
But EU, I think it's still 6. But I think EU has a South African team this year. So that's new.
Oh, ooh, okay.
I think it's still 6 for EU.
Javiem gonna cook.
Yeah, Javiem, and others from South Africa. But yeah, America's growing slowly. I think Japan has 12 teams now. I want to say like 12 or I think it went from 8 to 12 this year. So I'm not too sure, but they're definitely growing way more than the other region.
Yeah, I'm hoping they try to find a way to provide more stepping stones for players, because I think the big problem is how top heavy we are in other regions, and like you mentioned before, there's not the influencer events provide the ways for the not 0.01% players to have goals to strive for and stepping stones to go through. And I think with the way things are operating in other regions, it's like either you're a punk or MENA, or like why bother? almost.
Yeah,
And even for the viewers as well, and for the players as well, it kind of feels that way. It's like, why bother if you're not already of that level? Because there's not like this even distribution of players along every level. It's like all the opportunities are so concentrated at the top 1, 2, and there's no stepping stones to go through. So I'm hoping we lead more into like the influencer events a little bit here. I'm hoping we find more ways to distribute opportunities, because I feel like it's possible. It's possible to replicate what's going on. Or we all learn Japanese. It's one or the other, man.
We gotta start making the videos where you gotta have the Japanese subtitles. You just gotta dub everything in Japanese.
Well, I think that already works. Like it already auto dubs to a degree, but I think you have to also do the thumbnail, which has about like 5,000 Japanese characters on the thumbnail. And from my understanding, you're able to cram a lot more information into less text in Japanese with their Japanese kanji and all that. So it's like cheating. Like they write full essays in the thumbnails, and they love that. And then even during the videos, you have to have boop, you have to have all the sound effects when the extra context and subtitles pop up. So I don't think you can just auto dub an English video and put it in Japanese and get the Japanese audience to be interested and engage. You got to do a little bit more. So I'm really, that's where my gears are turning, and maybe someone else will capitalize on this first. But I feel like the first like American fighting game content creator to like bridge that gap is gonna blow up. I honestly feel like it might be hard to get the Japanese audience to care. Like, why do I care about? We have Kawano making videos every day, Kazunoko, and my favorite VTuber. Why would I care about this random dude from America? But I feel like it's possible. So if it's not gonna be me, it should be you, iDom, and if it's not us, it's gonna be someone else much smarter than us making this happen. But we'll see how big Street Fighter 6 can really get, and Japan is the test bed for all this. But we do have other things to talk about, other things to touch on, because my other anxiety, aside from Japan taking over the world of Street Fighter and all of us just fading to irrelevancy, is, am I going to get into that Marvel Tokon Beta or not, man? What's going on? The beta opens September 5th, which would be next weekend at the time of this recording. You guys will probably get this right before the beta is going live, and maybe emails are sent out. But I don't know if I'm in it or not, man. I want to play some Marvel Tokon. That game felt like crack. I played 10 games at EVO. I need more. I need it. I
unfortunately did not get an email as well. You know, Arxis, what are we doing? You know, I thought I was a good noodle, but I haven't got my email yet. I praise nothing but Arxis games except for that one game that I think came out in 2022. I think that, you know what, we're not even going to talk about it. But for me, I really want to play Tokon just because, you know, Star-Lord is one of the more cool characters I played in a fighting game. I thought Star-Lord was pretty unique in that sense. I thought Star-Lord had like so many ways to kind of change their combo structures with like the elemental bullets and stuff. So I thought that stuff was really cool.
I didn't get into Star-Lord that much. I got to play a handful of games at EVO, and all I did was like Captain America, ABC launcher, you know. Once I figured out that the combo structure had like that DNA of DBFZ in it, like at the very basic core, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do a basic, the world's most basic DBFZ combos plus assist. And then maybe I did a couple Iron Man tri jumps. I couldn't remember how to tag into my third character. You know what I mean? Like, I was
yeah.
I didn't get enough time to even figure out the main mechanics, but it would just felt good. Like even just doing baby DBFZ style combos, ABC launcher, AB double jump, AB heavy to knock him down. I'll think, yep, I'm feeling it. It looks great. And then you had the different special move systems where you could do crazy off the wall specials. Iron Man is throwing and ping ponging his shield all over the screen, right? So I was like, oh, there's enough here for the chaos to ensue that you want from a Marvel game, even with a kind of more familiar combo structure and not necessarily requiring a huge like rotating cast of characters like you would from a traditional Marvel title. So I was instantly hooked. Like normally it takes me a few games and some time in training mode to like really start feeling the vibe of a game. I don't like mashing without knowing what I'm doing that much. I don't find it that satisfying, right? So usually I have to like warm up to a game instantly. From the moment I saw the loading screens, the character select screen, I was like, this game got the sauce. It just has it pass the eyeball test instantly. And as soon as we got to finish that play test, you have a limited time of the game before they kick you off, so the thousands of other people in line can play. They announced the beta announcement. They said, hey, a beta's going live. You got to sign up through the PlayStation website. On my phone, thank goodness I had my PlayStation password saved on my phone. I've never logged into the PlayStation website ever. You have to go through the PlayStation beta program. So it's not being directly run through the developer, because otherwise, maybe ArcSys, you got some top player privilege. Maybe someone would hook it up, This is run through the PlayStation beta program. You sign up, you get an email confirming that you're in the general beta program. Well, what about, I don't care about these other betas. I don't give a damn about any other game here. I just want to get into Marvel Tokon. So I feel very uneasy if I'll be able to play or not. I'm fiending. So I did get the email confirming that, but if I don't get into this beta item, I'm going to be so depressed. I'm going to be so depressed if I don't get in. I don't know what I'm going to do for those couple days.
Well, in a few days after 2SKO, 2SKO.
No one cares about the 2XKO beta. I want to play Marvel Tokon. Marvel Tokon.
But yeah, for Marvel Tokon, like I said, I'm super excited. I don't know. I like interesting characters. I think for me, I played so many fighting games. The thing that gets me involved in fighting games is an interesting character. That's all I need. And for me, Star-Lord passed that eye test. And even Captain America, because even with the shield stuff was kind of cool. Because when I was playing, I was Star-Lord, Doctor Doom, Captain America, and Iron Man. Doom had some cool stuff with the shield, but I was still trying to do foot dive like it was Marvel 3. But yeah, Star-Lord had some interesting stuff with the guns because, like I said, the elemental bullets was really cool. And Cap's shield is it felt like I was playing Marvel Rivals with, bouncing the shield off of surfaces to try to hit people or try to angle the shields kind of correctly to kind of hit your opponent. So I'm curious what people would do with Captain America when the game actually does come out. I can imagine some, shield take you out the corner kind of push out mix-ups because that's always fun.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see like the depth that the characters actually have, because like I said, that's my selling point for any fighting game. That's why I really like Guilty Gear. I really like Marvel. The characters got to do it for me. The interesting stuff you can do with the character.
Yeah, they definitely went and made the characters very unique in their toolkits because, like I mentioned before, I think they struck a good balance of having a very intuitive and easy to pick up core, and they also have a lot of auto combos and things of that nature. But on top of that, they have a whole dedicated special move button with different set of special moves, which are like the more crazy ones, which you can clearly see there's going to be a lot of depth involved in mastering them. So just from that initial impression, I think they might have nailed that balance. Can't say for sure, of course, but there's always like the concern with more modern fighting games about managing accessibility and how do you not overwhelm players, but at the same time, how do you have the depth and craziness that people crave to keep a game having a lot of longevity and people exploring it. And I feel like Marvel 3 also is the game that nailed that.
Marvel 3 is the best fighting game. People are still inventing tech still to this day.
Right.
I've just seen Hayden come out with a Doctor Strange Infinite in the corner on certain characters, and it's not a TAC Infinite. The game's still evolving. That's how good the game is.
And people loved it casually, right? That was the fighting game that I knew that I had my non-FGC friends from regular life. They brought that game up to me, and I was like, "What? You guys are playing this?" And they were into it, and they started learning real combos eventually. Yeah. And so I think Marvel 3 kind of nailed that.
Funny you bring that up. For me, even when I was in a lot of my high school friends, their favorite game, I've always tried to get them to play the fighting games I've played, but like you said, Marvel 3 was that game. Like, I think the two games they played the most, like the most fighting games they got into, was probably Marvel 3 and Dragon Ball. They were Dragon Ball fans before, but those two games are the ones that kind of always get people into the FGC.
Right. The popular IPs, DBFZ, I think, was another one as well. Popular IP, and also like a simple enough core. I mean, DBFZ had auto combos like crazy. I think they did the auto combos a little wrong though. Like that to me was too much. The auto tracking and auto correcting of the auto combos, they would phase underneath you and then turn around and hit you. Like the auto combos itself, mashing auto combo became like a really high level thing. Like you had to do it because some of the auto combos were just insane. So I'm kind of hoping Marvel Tokon doesn't have that problem, where the auto combos are not just like a vehicle for people to feel engaged and like get their hits and convert, and they end up being like, this is the high level thing you mash because it's just so absurdly good with the tracking and the hitbox interactions. But yeah, they kind of managed to bridge that gap. So once again, we have another popular IP. We're back on Marvel. It looks beautiful. It has, I think, enough of an ease of entry with the different systems that's presenting, but also the potential for depth. I think we might have a banger on our hands. I'm usually very sensitive about getting exciting about a new game. I don't get excited for Christmas. You know what I mean? Like, I'm always kind of the guy, like, until I have my hands on the game, until it's that moment, I'm not on the hype train. Never have been. It's been one of the things I get critiqued about the most. Even Street Fighter 6. I was like, the entire time until I had my hands on it. I've always been that way. This is the first time I'm getting a little, getting my hopes up, getting a little excited, which it makes me nervous, man. You can't, don't break my heart, Marvel Tokon. Don't get my hopes up here, and let me into that beta. That's what I'm saying, because you're not wrong. If I don't get in, all I have is 2x KO after that, and for some reason, no one seems excited for 2x KO anymore.
I am a huge fan of Blitzcrank. I think Blitzcrank's going to be sick. I like Blitzcrank just because he looks like he is Spencer. He's Spencer from Marvel 3. I know the comparison's kind of weird, but he's a robot. He has an arm. He can extend his arm and grab people. So like that's a cool character. I'm assuming he's going to be able to like traverse the screen with his arm. I would hope so. But I thought Blitzcrank was cool. I know a lot of people were getting mad, like, oh man, this game has 3 big body characters now. What are we doing? There's too many big body characters. There's only 10 characters in the game. But I don't know. I like Blitzcrank, and I didn't get to try Vi at Evo, so I do want to try her in the beta as well.
I think you hit the source of the problem, though. There's only 10 characters, characters that are going to be there on release, right? So what's happening to 2XKO is the permanent closed beta begins on the September 9th, which is set to be the continuously running beta until release. That release date hasn't been confirmed, but I think the general consensus was it'll be within the next months. That was the unit of measurement that was given, is that it won't be years. It won't be year. It should be less than 12 months. Will they nail that target? Who knows, man? It's been too long. And I think the interesting takeaway here is 2XKO hit that critical mass where I think all of the goodwill starting around Evo this year, any goodwill that was given to this game, because initially, you have to remember, 2XKO was, I think, originally announced or hinted at around 2019, pre-COVID. This is when 2XKO became a thing in the minds of the FGC. Now, it's a long time ago, man. And since then, it's been promoted. It's been present at Evo. People have played through 2 betas of it at home. We've seen developer footage. We've seen the evolution of the game. And it hasn't progressed that much in 6 years. And then come release, they're aiming for only 10 characters. And this, that, and the third. And then slowly, it went from this initial insane hype cycle where people are like, 2XKO is going to save the FGC. Riot's going to come in here and revolutionize the FGC. It's going to be free to play. There's going to be millions of concurrent players every day. It's going to take esports to a level we've never seen before. We can not even comprehend. And then to slowly, like, yeah, 2XKO, it's been taking a while, but it's going to be worth it, man. It's going to be hype when it comes out. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be super popular. And then now, I think with this Evo, and with them still not having a set release date and still only having 10 characters and all these other factors building up against it over time, it reached that critical mass where it became the cool thing to dunk on. It went from being in the good graces of the FGC to being like, literally, if you want to meme on something on Twitter and get a bunch, like tens of thousands of likes for just ragging on something, dunking on something, the target became 2XKO. It literally became that. And then, of course, there was the whole Chipotle ad with 2xKO. Like, there was Chipotle Gate with Sajam and Sherry doing the 2v2 Chipotle ad with 2xKO. And it just, like, was a recipe with all of the negativity surrounding it, where people are just ragging on this game because it has never released. And it feels like it's all this buildup to nothing. So I don't know if this beta is going to help that or not.
I think overall it should be good. I mean, like I said, I think if you play the game, you'll have a good sense of like how the game works. I don't know. From what I've played, because like I got into I think it was a closed alpha with Jinx. I thought Jinx was pretty cool, but not really my kind of style of character to play. So I think for the most part, because I've tried a lot of the characters in the game, like I think Ahri is sick. Alawi's one of my more, one of my cooler fighting game characters I've got to play. I think there's a lot of cool characters and like there's a lot of depth to the game that kind of helps. I don't know whether that's going to be good or bad, because I feel like I don't want to say casual play, but every newcomer is kind of scared of tag fighters. I know they have a whole like scary, tag fighter is kind of too scary for me, but I hope 2SKO does well. I don't like that it's kind of been the thing to kind of dunk on, because it reminds me of kind of like Street Fighter 5, Marvel Infinite, DNF Duel. But yeah, I hope I hope people just try it and just have fun with it, find a character they like, because like I said, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, public perception's a really fickle thing. Once you cross that barrier, like people are always just looking for something that they can be not only allowed to, but rewarded for making fun of. That's how the internet operates, and I think a lot of people maliciously get into that, and I think you should reevaluate yourself. I think it's okay, it's harmless when it's a product like that. I mean, it's whatever, it's not a person, but in general there's that kind of like mentality of like, ooh, this is now the thing to make fun of, and I want to join in on that bandwagon because it feels good to make fun of external things. Like I said, usually if it's a product, it's not a big deal, but sometimes it's people. Sometimes it's a little like inhumane. I feel like how these trends form, and unfortunately for 2xKO, for the product team and for people who are fans of the game, it's become 2xKO. It really has. I think it's starting to slow down a bit. We'll see if that picks back up. But no matter what announcement was made, no matter what story was trending about the game since Evo, it's only been negative. I heard about Blitzcrank being announced only through the negative reactions. It's like no matter what they do from here on out, it's the big buzz around the game is just a big stink about this game not being what it was hyped up or perceived to eventually be. So I wonder if they're going to be able to steer the ship around, and I wonder if this is just a bubble of Twitter, because of course it is, right? I don't expect Twitter, the actual general perception to be this negative, but it makes me really wonder how this game is going to launch. Like its success used to be all but guaranteed. And now, I don't know. I don't know where the future lies for 2xKO.
I also just think it's an abundance of tag fighters. This is kind of like I was saying with Street Fighter 6. Is like there's competition. So the problem is now I don't have to buy your tag fighter, because if I don't like your tag fighter, Tokon's right here to play. So I think it's kind of just competition. And like I said, I know I've done this with my friends, and we've all had arguments. Oh, don't buy this game. Let's just get this one instead. This one's better. So it's hard to really balance it. Like, hell, Invincible might come out and might be the best tag fighter of the three. And then all their friends are gonna be like, yo, get Invincible. And now what? I took sales from Tokon and, well, 2SKO is free.
It's 2xKO is free, man. Yeah. Wouldn't that work for them?
Yeah, I guess so. But even then, it's still, don't play 2SKO. Invincible's, I don't know, combat's just 10 times better, and then nobody plays 2SKO. That's kind of the problem, just having competition. It's better for us as consumer, but it's kind of maybe a bit worse for the people making the product.
Yeah, I got to imagine the 2xKO team is like sweating like crazy right now, considering all the competition in the space out of nowhere, because they had the head start. If they had just finished and released ahead of time, they would have been capitalizing on this market, but they couldn't. I don't know. It didn't come together. It might be a super small team, might be other issues, but it feels like this should have released 2 years ago. This should have been out 2 years ago, and they missed that wave of their initial hype cycle. and it's morphed into a negative hype cycle.
Yeah.
Like it's the opposite. Everything is just negativity surrounding it. So I'm hoping that the beta helps get the audience that wants this game engaged, and that there's some positive reception around it. Like, I'd rather this game succeed than not. But I will say that between the two, I played 2XKO and I played Marvel Tokon. I instantly preferred Marvel Tokon. Instantly. I my concern with 2XKO is that they're preaching this freedom aspect, and to me, I think unchecked freedom in a tag fighter is also a problem. You have the MVCI issue.
I know what you mean. There's a lot of games like that. MVCI, Power Rangers is also another obvious one where too much freedom is not really a good thing. There's a lot of games actually. I think SF6 kind of bridges into that problem a bit too. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah. To me, it's more about like active tag. I think it depends on how you do it, but active tag can be dangerous.
I think giving people too many options. I think people want a hectic game, but I also think too many options starts getting hectic and then starts getting like kind of annoying a little bit. But I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's a balance to find. You want freedom, but if freedom results in obvious degenerative strategies where like, there's an infinite set of options you could choose from, but because the system allowed for this emergent gameplay to occur, they didn't check for these other corner scenarios, and these corner scenarios are so powerful that it ends up making every other approach irrelevant. That's often what you see happening in these kind of systems, in my opinion. You end up going for the infinite combo, you end up going for whatever broken mix up, which is completely unstoppable. Like that, it often ends up in that kind of way. Whereas I feel like it look like a Marvel 3. There were some scenarios like that. I think like, More Doom was kind of in that kind of broken in that aspect.
There's counterplay to More Doom.
There's still counterplay. I'm just trying to find examples. Zero May Cry a little bit.
Zero May Cry is kind of, to me, that one.
Yeah. So like, there's a few scenarios like that, but it still ended up overall being one of the best balances of freedom versus depth, right? It didn't end up feeling dumb to watch or play. Whereas with MVCI, I kind of felt like it felt a little dumb to watch. It felt a little like you did a really a move that had a long lockout animation. You active tagged, and then you did a 3-way mix up or a combo while your one character still beating them up, and it got very repetitive. It got so stale to watch. As a fan of fighting games, I was like, dude, I feel like I'm watching the same thing over and over, and on top of the other issues of it looking like a PS2 game. It was. There's other issues with that as well, but that's my concern with 2XKO a little bit. And even then, they mentioned that they nerfed some aspect of how
the handshake.
There's kind of a high-low mix that they nerfed, right? Do you know the details of that?
It was kind of the handshake, but it was kind of the same issue that Marvel Infinite had, where like you would do something and then this character's here, but I tagged, so you blocked the wrong way because I switched sides on you, and it was getting kind of obnoxious. So it's kind of like, oh well, there's cross-up protection, so you don't have to deal with that. It's kind of I praised the Tokon though, and I was telling them the one thing I like that Tokon did is when you tag like that, the little like soul, I don't know what it's called, the little like orange thing, the little orange dot
soul.
When you tag.
I think it's the soul. Yeah,
it kind of slows down the game so you can see, so like that kind of stuff doesn't work, but stuff like that was very prevalent in Marvel Infinite. So I was like, this is good because that stuff is just kind of a bit silly to me.
And I think they I don't know if it's just the handshake mix up you're referring to. I think it was also a high-low mix for a similar strategy where you would do a low move and then tag and hit high or low on almost the same frame. And they nerfed that recently. I saw some post about that from the devs. So this late in the game, they're like, wait a minute, let's add some protection for these super degen mix-ups, because otherwise you're just kind of rinsing and repeating the same thing over and over. And like it was like, my understanding was the mix was so powerful that it was one of those ones where even the person applying the mix doesn't know which way it's hitting. It's just like an instant high-low either way. They don't know the timing of it, and it's just you got to hold that. So they nerfed that, and I'm like, dude, the closed beta is starting in a couple days, and the game is set to release in a couple months, and you're adding fundamental defensive protections related to the core of the flow of the gameplay because you allowed a system that had too much freedom in its tagging, which always happens like this. It always goes this way. And I'm like, that makes me nervous. I'm like, You're discovering this now?
I think every game has been like that. BB Tag, Marvel Infinite. I was in Marvel Infinite. My team was actually the one doing the same thing. It was the same Dante Dorm, Degen mix up, jump over, and then low with Dante, and then it's just like, oh, hold that, and it feels like you're doing kind of rinse and repeat. But that kind of stuff is, I don't know. I don't make fighting games, and I don't know how you fix that in a game like that because you're giving people too much freedom. In like more 1v1 games like a Street Fighter or Guilty Gear, obviously stopping that's much easier. But I don't know, if I even were to make a fighting game, I wouldn't make a tag game. That sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, no, it's hard. Like I'm facetiously discussing these problems. It's a very difficult thing to solve. And like, how do you make a fun, chaotic game without going into those territories? And that's my concern with 2XKO. And I feel like you mentioned with Marvel Tokon, they're bridging that gap because it's a tag game that doesn't require you to tag necessarily because it's a shared health bar. Like there's not a required incentive to tag. And then there's also like the slowdown on the active tag. Like there's ways where they're like, yeah, let's not let this be so crazy that it doesn't that breaks everything. And then Marvel 3, like, it just don't have active tag. To me, active tag is just such a risky mechanic. They're all doing active tag. Marvel 3, you called a bad assist, you died. And then you couldn't just randomly swap to the other character as you called them out. You know what I mean? Just active tag feels cool on paper, but I feel like every implementation we've seen, it makes me as a not hardcore tag game player not want to play the game instantly. I'd rather play a DBFZ, I'd rather play a Marvel 3, I'd rather play a Marvel 2. Because as soon as you start adding active tag, I think it just generates chaos, but like sloppy chaos. Like it doesn't appeal to me in that sense. So that's my personal opinion on those mechanics. So 2XKO, I'm still going to play it for sure. I'm going to try it out. I'm going to play all these games. I'm really hoping to play some Marvel Tokon. That is the game I'm for sure fiending right now. I'm really hoping to get into that. But I think we just have a lot of choice now. I guess for consumers at the end of the day, it's a good time, right?
That's always kind of the thing. Like, there's so many fighting games to play. Like, it's kind of I don't know about you. If somebody were probably to ask me what fighting game they should get now, we would probably both say Street Fighter 6. But just having the options, and just if somebody were to describe to me what they want in a fighting game, there's so many different options to choose from. You got like the Strives, the what else? BB tags, the unis, the Mortal Kombats, the DNF. There's so many options, so I think that helps a lot.
You're gonna start hitting up DNF before you even drop a Tekken. Listen, I know Tekken 8 had the. I know they had some issues with season. Man, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel there. All I've ever heard you do is rag on DNF, and then you recommend DNF Duel before Tekken 8.
I can recommend somebody. There's somebody out there who probably would really like DNF.
Dude, I think everyone would like DNF. As long as you play it casually and no one knows how to get good at it, that is one of the best popcorn or bubblegum fighting games of all time, in my opinion. Just don't chew on it for too long. You know what I mean? Like, get all your friends in there and get out, and then you're gonna have a great time. So I actually fully recommend DNF Duel for that. I think it's a gorgeous game, banging soundtrack. So for a casual game, pretty good. Just avert your eyes. Don't open your eyes to the depths of hell that it can unleash. So good time for fighting game players. Lots of options out there. Before we wrap this up, iDom, it's time to go dumpster diving. We went to the Brian F Patreon page, patreon.com/Brian_F, to ask you guys if you had any questions for us. And we got a couple of questions from the Patreon members. So first one we have up here from Key Ganners. How do you tackle the work-life balance when it comes to content creation and competing? Is it stable enough to do them full-time, or is some other income source necessary even at both of your levels of popularity? So getting into like the economics of being in this space, and it's a very complex question because I think it depends a lot, but I think the easy answer is yeah, you need some other money, man.
Yeah.
Being a full-time pro, if you're trying to actually be a full-time competitor, which I'm not, right? Maybe iDom, you could speak to this. You're working on your content creation, but what's it like being a full-time pro?
To me, it's just a lot of, I don't even look at competing because like competing is so shaky. Like, obviously all these tournaments have such huge prize pools now, but even for me, it's like getting the content out for YouTube, even just like random sponsors or like random, not let me not say random sponsors, but like sponsors hitting you up like, hey, do a Raid Shadow Legends or like a NordV. Like people meme on that kind of stuff, but that stuff actually helps a lot, and like they'll give you good money to promote their kind of products and stuff. So just sponsorships helping out, and even just but when I was on Xset, the money from Xset kind of helped a lot to kind of like propel or just do other stuff to try to keep me having the work and life balance together, and just streaming in general. Streaming helps a lot too. Good money from streaming.
Right, but what about competing? Right, it's not the biggest source of income.
Competing's good if you're winning. I mean, I guess during the Street Fighter 5 times it helped a lot, but for 6, it's good if you're on a Street Fighter League or I guess winning way more I got top 8 at Cream City last year. There's a CPT event. I think I got $100. Don't compete.
Yeah. What about second at ECT though? You got second at ECT?
I think I got a decent. I think I got like 3-4K maybe, I want to say.
Okay, so you actually made a return on investment.
But I drove there. I didn't even have to buy a flight. I had I had no problem getting there. I drove there. So
yeah, I mean the reality of it is that unless you're like literally Meta RD or Xiaoha, you know what I mean? You have to be the 0.001% and also among the 0.001%, the person winning the big prize pools, because Punk, he got 21,000 for Evo, right? Meta RD as well. You're getting like 20K or even less. I think he got 16K, something like that.
I got more
for winning Evo.
I got more for getting second at East Coast Throwdown the year I got second at Evo. Actually, I think the year I got second at Evo, I got like 2,500.
Wow. Yeah, it just varies so much. So even when you reach the peaks of competitive success, it depends on which tournament that is and who's backing it. So getting money from tournaments is always generally the least consistent and the lowest option, unless you like place at an Esports World Cup or Capcom Cup. Yeah, because those are the only events that are just throwing money into the furnace to give to the players. But that's only like 3 players per 6 players a year. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't support an entire ecosystem or an entire industry. So in general, I think especially in the West, you have to be doing content creation or something on the side, because I think streaming is, for content creators, the #1 place where you monetize your audience. YouTube is required because that actually builds your audience. It advertises you. And then like doing well competitively and being on these big platforms, Capcom Fighters, whatever, will build your brand as well and help build your stream. So basically you're having the funnels of strong performances on large platforms and YouTube content, which actually has algorithms recommending your content out to a lot of people, and that funnels your audience to Twitch. YouTube does generate revenue as well, but sometimes you got to pay editors, you got to invest in it. So sometimes you can lose money on YouTube trying to grow that. But I think the strong upside is funneling people to your Twitch, where the hardcore fans might support you. There's a Twitch Prime, you're right, free subscription with Amazon Prime. The ad revenue is pretty good there as well. And so I think that's the platform where people monetize the most in this space. And then, of course, there's a handful of players who are still full-time sponsored, but that is increasingly rare these days, except for Esports World Cup, which is all the fake funny money from Saudi. There's a gold rush from all the orgs to pick up players to be in those events because they want to get Esports World Cup points for the club championships, which gives out millions of dollars for no reason. And then also, even Saudi sometimes foots the bill for these teams to pick up the players. Like, they pay the teams to participate. Like, it's just all Saudi money head to toe for them doing this kind of like gold rush with these orgs. So you might get picked up short term for that, but it's not a sustainable sort of venture. So I just feel like in general, unless you're in Japan right now and are on Street Fighter League becoming a full-time pro, I think it's a very unstable system. It's very not good, I would say, in the West for being a full-time competitive player. That's my perspective, at least.
I would probably say a little bit more of the same thing, but even, like I said, just like I would say putting stuff on even TikTok or Twitter or whatever, all that stuff kind of helps as well. And it's just like, it may not be like, I can survive off of TikTok, but like the random TikTok video that might get like 1 million views actually helps a lot too.
Yeah, so content creation is basically the focus there,
it's
right?
kind of the same thing.
Because the other part of this question is, how do you tackle work-life balance when it comes to content creation and competing? So I'm assuming the question is about like working a regular job, and the answer there is you don't.
Yeah.
that's my perspective. I don't know. How about you, iDom? How's the post office going? You still?
Yeah. I when I used to work at post office and at GameStop, actually, I didn't really play. I didn't stream during those times. I was just playing the game myself. I was just
Yeah.
playing kind of off stream, so I wasn't really doing too much content creation.
Yeah, content creation takes a lot of time. I don't think people understand how much time it really occupies. So it's very difficult and there's not much return. I would say this whole thing, the whole industry, especially in the West, is supported by hopes and dreams. Like, I don't think there's actually that much money to be made, unless you're, like I said, the 0.0001% of top players, and also the 0.0001% of content creators. Like, look at like a Maximilian, right? Like, it's just not, there's not that many people eating like that. And Japan, it's different. Like we talked about earlier in this podcast, I think they've broken that barrier, and there's a lot of sustainability to be found in the pro scene and content creation space. Not really solved here in the West. So don't expect balance if you're trying to do full-time job, content creation, and competing. And you need to diversify your sources of income. And I would say primarily, even for people doing the competing thing, a lot of the money, unless they are full-time sponsored, which is still just a tiny fraction of even your favorite players, is going to come from content creation. So that's the reality of it. It's really not a lucrative career unless you're of the elite, and also hot that year at the right event at the right time. You know, like there's so many factors that go into play.
Just throw away your social life. I think that's the best answer I can tell you.
Oh, facts. Yeah. That's required. Yeah, absolutely. We got another question here from Chandarin, who said, I've been grinding for an interstate major recently. Any tips for a healthy ranked drilling life balance and tips for grinding in general? So prepping for a big tournament. Any tips for that? I would say personally, like the main thing to remember is I feel like a tournament is sort of like that's your exam. You can cram a little bit for your exam, but for the most part, it's did you follow along with the lesson material for the semester, right? It's going to reflect your preparation for the long term up until that moment. I feel like I hear this perspective from a lot of people getting into the competitive scene where they act like, oh, I got to lock in for this one event and that's going to solve my fundamental issues. And I just view it as more of like their touchstones along a very long journey and reflect where you currently are. So yeah, you can grind a little bit leading up to an event to prepare for specific things, but I view it more as this is a reflection of your effort compounding over days, months, weeks, years, right? I don't really view it as much of a grinding for one sort of event. That can help for sure a little bit, but it's not going to cover up if you haven't played the game at all for 3 years and then you try to cram for a week or two, right? It's not going to make up for that. So that's kind of my perspective on that concept.
I would say probably, I think kind of what you said is you're playing in like doses. I would say you don't want to forget anything. Like you don't want to, show up to the tournament and be like, who's this character? But I would say definitely you play, just remember your offense. Try to think of, because when I play in tournaments, I always think you're on layer 1 when you sit down. You don't know what the opponent knows. You're on layer 1. But I also say you got to be ready for the little curveball questions. Like if you're studying for a math test, and then you know all the math, all the math questions, but then for some reason there's a random science question on the test. You just got to be ready for that kind of stuff too. But I would say, even if you're not ready for the one science question, you could kind of go back at your past work and maybe the answer's kind of hidden somewhere in the math questions that you can use for the science question. That sounded very
great analogy.
No, it's true though. No, it's true though. Because if you're playing against like Marissa and you play Marissa all the time, and then you got to play a Lily, you can use the information you know about Marissa and kind of apply it to Lily as well. So you're kind of taking the questions from the old. I mean, you're taking the answer from the old question and applying to the new one that you don't know the answer for.
Adam, I think your brain's just different. Your brain's just different.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
How about this? Do you ever really at this stage, do a comparison, like from when you were first starting to compete at a really high level, like back in, like, I'm thinking 2017 Street Fighter 5 is the first notable, like, large scale big wins you had, versus now. Is there ever a point where you really feel like a heavy grind building up to an event was beneficial, or do you feel like it was more just a continuous, like I mentioned before, like the result of a lot of effort over a sustained period of time?
I feel like cramming is actually bad. And I feel like as a sustainable grind is probably, you're going to want to play at your own pace and kind of just digest the information over time. I will say from personal experience, I definitely crammed for the Red Bull Kumite in New York because I was not playing the game for a while, and then I was like, oh wait, Kumite's coming up. So I tried to play a lot, and I felt like I did really bad in that tournament. So I actually think cramming is pretty bad for you.
Yeah, that was your worst Kumite.
Yeah, that was awful.
I mean, that was the one versus nephew, right?
Nephew, yeah.
You unfortunately got cooked at that one. So the events you did best at, you feel like you didn't cram?
It was a steady diet of just playing, like, my 30 minutes, hour, maybe a couple of hours. Not, let me try to play 8 hours today and try to get everything ready.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I feel generally, if you're cramming before the exam, it's already too late, right? Like, the tournament to me always reflects what your current level. And I do think that you can ramp up. Like for me, like before some events, I've ramped up and played more aggressively, and I did think that helped with like being more aware for like combo conversions, having a little bit better awareness on certain things. I think that did help, just getting more reps in. But it probably would have been better if I just had a more consistent training regimen before that instead of cramming. It's like I did patch it up a little bit, I think, by upping the hours like 2 weeks before an event, but it would have been better if I had just done that over a sustained period of time. I would have been more steps ahead in the journey and progression with whatever I'm doing. So in general, I feel like your goal at a tournament is not necessarily to cram and try to win the whole thing. It's to go in comfortable with your level of play and your game plan, and to feel like you played like yourself. That to me is always the most important thing. Win or lose, if you feel like you made the decisions you wanted to make, and it wasn't a result of panic or frustration, or, you know what I mean? Like, as long as even if you lost, if you like, yeah, I decided to go for this play because I felt it would have worked and it didn't, that to me is a win, right? You can learn from that experience and reevaluate. You don't want to go through a tournament match and feel like you just panicked, or you were unsure of what you were doing or why you were doing it, or you were frustrated or tilted. Those are the things you want to avoid. If you go in with a more clear mind and clear objective game plan, you can always take feedback from it, and I think you just feel better about it afterwards. So that would be my recommendation. So just have a steady regimen for practicing. Don't overdo it before the event, and just remember that the tournament is just there will be another tournament. There will always be another tournament, even if this is not the one where you win or perform your best. Don't cram like it's the end of the world, like, because it isn't. It feels that way at the time. I know it feels like when you get that loss, it feels like, what am I doing with my life? I got the whole flight or ride home. I got to think about this for hours. It feels like it, but it's not. There will always be another tournament, and there will always be time to train up and improve your level play for the next one. Well, that's it. I think that's a good place to close it out. Any final thoughts for the people, iDom? Any words of wisdom? Any more analogies you want to break down between math and science from the mind of the grappler player here? What do you got for us, iDom?
Nothing really to end on. Just looking for my email, Arxis. Where is it?
We gotta ask Sony, man. Maybe if it was Arxis, we could pull some TPP, get some top player privilege. But I don't think Sony gives a damn. So we're gonna be gambling with the rest of you guys, hoping and mashing refresh on our email to see if we can get into that beta. And that's about it, guys. Thanks for tuning in to Extra Trashy, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.